Welcome to episode 298 of the Whatnauts review show, where every week we pick a story and we talk about it. This could be a movie, TV series, anime, manga, comic book, audio drama, all kinds of entertainment. We watch it, read it, listen to it, and then we come back here and talk about it. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I am joined, as always, by Kyle Springer.
Hello, Melissa. How's your weekend been?
It's good. Spent yesterday watching all 5 hours of the Olympics opening ceremony. Did you catch any of it?
I did, yeah. I watched the opening ceremony. I've seen
Nice.
little bits and pieces of some events here and there. I watched a little bit of water polo for a sec.
Cool.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm excited for the breaking August 9th and 10th.
Yes.
I'm starting to look through the names of who's who, and it's okay, Hong Ten. Okay, I know him. He's been around for a while. Okay. So starting to look a little bit more closely at that as it's approaching soon.
That's exciting. You're going to have to give me the rundown, and I'll pass it along to my parents. I did have to explain to my mom while we were watching the ceremony what breaking is.
Now you need to show them breaking and breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo.
I also had to explain to her what parkour was, which I've never had to do to anyone.
Yeah.
I feel like as soon as somebody has seen parkour, they're like, got it. I understand. It's simple to understand, but can take a lifetime to master the art of parkour.
Yeah.
Watching that funny little Assassin's Creed Phantom run through Paris with the torch. What a weird ceremony. Loved it, but a weird one.
Well, I don't know how much you caught about Notre Dame burning down, but part of the reason they were able to rebuild it was because Assassin's Creed had such detailed 3D models of that building and donated it to them when they had lost the original plans. Yeah, they had 3D models that they used in the Assassin's Creed game that took place in France. Yeah, and that is the reason they it was able to be rebuilt, which is just a neat hey, thanks for helping us out. Yeah.
I had no idea. Wow, yeah. Thank you, Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
You take life and you give life back. Such is the cycle.
That is the Assassin's Creed. So, yeah, it's been a busy weekend for sure. But, Melissa, what are we here to talk about this time? Speaking of the Olympics, kind of.
Yes. In honor of the Paris Olympics, we are spending July on French cinema, something we really have not talked about as much as we ought to. Last episode, we got weird with Titan. This week, we're going a bit more traditional, but by no means normal, with the 1964 musical film The Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
Yeah. This is one that I did not know existed, was not on my radar by any stretch of the imagination. Melissa, you brought this one to the table saying this would be interesting for us to check out, especially since Barbie came out within the last year or so. And Greta Gerwig apparently cited this movie as one of the big inspirations.
Yeah, she had that whole list of, if you like Barbie, check this out on HBO Max, and this was in there. HBO Max, I found this in the TCM section. That TCM section is a gold mine. Please spend time there. Find some great old thing to watch.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where I first heard of this movie, but it's been something I've wanted to bring on for a while. Mm-hmm. I love old musicals, but the fact that this one is sung all the way through, there are no individual songs. It's just one long track. Nobody just plain old says anything. It all must be sung. And there's not really dancing either. It's a movie, a normal, quiet little drama, but everyone is singing the entire time. It's such an oddity. that I wanted to see it for myself, and I thought it would be a great fit here in French Cinema Month, particularly because with Titan, I wanted to watch something that was recent, and then I also wanted to watch something that was a bit more historic and maybe had enough stylistic influence that we could have seen echoes of it in the opening ceremony, which we did not. They had the moon with the rocket in its eye, one of the most indelible images of cinema from France or anywhere.
Yeah. I mean,
lots
it was
of fascinating
pouring rain
visuals.
in the opening
The umbrellas
ceremony,
manifested themselves. They're like, you didn't invite us, we invite ourselves.
Yeah. Crashing the party. Yeah, it's an oddity for sure. I think it is interesting because it's you said it's not really one track, but the music does change, and I know certain songs from the or certain like parts you can kind of cut out and have it be its own thing. I think even just a quick glance at their Wikipedia page, and it was like, yeah, certain songs from this, have been re-sung by a number of artists or redone by famous musicians and stuff like that. So it has tracks, but you're right, it is one just big long thing that just kind of morphs in, like one song morphs into the next one. I think there was really only that I remember there was really only like one scene that didn't have any kind of music in it. And it was really quick, so like it's not even that significant of a scene, at least in length of time. But yeah, I feel like because it went that route, it felt more like an opera. If you've been to an opera, or if that's your thing, something like this might interest you. It's less like pop music, and it's an interesting mix to say the least. It's also just very brightly colored, very vivid.
Yes.
I know. The pinks will like sear their color inside your eyes. All the lime greens that's happening. All the purples.
There's wallpapers in this movie that you will remember on your deathbed.
Yeah. You'll close your eyes, and every night they will haunt you. They will haunt you. But yeah, I think having this be an influence for the Barbie movie is a great choice. The romance that's happening in here, the colors, just all of the stuff that's happening in here, kind of feel it's just like, yes, it makes sense that it's an influence, so it fits right in. There are certain times where a director will be like, oh yeah, one of my influences was this thing or that thing, and you're just like, oh, okay, never would have thought of that, but all right, I guess. And this is absolutely not that. It's just like, oh yeah. Spot on. Exactly.
Which is fun to see, fun to go back and watch an inspiration point for a film, something I'd really love to do more often, and something I think Max, more than any other platform, is well suited for. Again, that TCM library, they've got one of the finest libraries of films older than like 1988 compared to other streaming platforms, and I think it's a true asset.
Yeah, absolutely. Something else that I thought was interesting on this, none of the actors that were in this were trained singers. So a lot of this is dubbed over and lip synced, which I just thought is an interesting fact about this, that they weren't necessarily like, well, I guess they were, looks like they were singing it themselves, at least most of them were, but they were lip syncing themselves. It looks like, which is
common.
Interesting. Yeah. So There you go. Indeed. Yeah, I had a good time with this one.
Mhm.
There were some things that did not really connect with me. But something that I was kind of surprisingly into was the romance, the story that was happening in here.
Mhm.
And the relationships that were on display. I was
Yeah.
rooting for certain things to happen, expecting certain other things to happen.
Mhm.
And it was kind of interesting or a surprise when it did not turn out like I thought it was going to. Or yeah, it was just, it was, yeah, it was just an interesting time to say the least.
Yeah. The movie's like 90 minutes long. It's very quick. Beautiful to look at. Really unique. I recommend checking it out. I also had a good time with it. It did not play out how I expected. The romance avoids a lot of tropes that you would have expected to see. Like there's no betrayals or misunderstandings. It's just sort of circumstances forcing people apart, and everybody is aware of what the circumstances are.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh dear, I wish I could do something, but it seems that I cannot.
C'est la vie, as they say,
Yeah.
right?
Never has a movie said la vie more.
Yeah, indeed. Um, so yeah, basic plot synopsis of this. Do you want to break this one down a little bit?
Yes, I will pronounce these names first so that you can copy off my pronunciation.
I'm still
Kyle.
not gonna
I
remember
see
them.
your game. It is 1957. It's somewhere thereabouts in Cherbourg, France. There is a young girl named Genvieve who is in love with Guy, a local auto mechanic. She works at her mom's store that sells exclusively umbrellas, and big surprise, that business is in trouble. Turns out you can't successfully run a store that only sells umbrellas.
When it rains, sometimes it does not pour.
Mm. So the movie focuses on Genevieve and her love affair with Guy that her mother disagrees with, and with trying to help her mother save the store by trying to plead, if you let me marry Guy, then we can both I can get a job. He can continue working at this auto mechanic shop. We can both help you with the store. Like, if you imagine the extra help that a son-in-law would be, the extra income that could help you with this. And things get complicated from there. This is a movie that takes place across a long amount of time, and it always gives you a
Yeah.
title card. You always know exactly where you are when you are. You always know exactly where you are because the movie doesn't really leave Cherbourg. And just it focuses on this one young woman and the trials and disappointments of her life.
Yeah. It's interesting because as we kind of alluded to, uh, it is just kind of a story about the circumstances of life and how relationships
Mhm.
change. Um, I guess this is slight spoilers. We'll get into our full spoilers section, but
Yes.
their relationship does not work out.
Mhm.
But I don't think that's necessarily a surprise of the movie per se.
Mm.
And it's just how they kind of deal with this relationship not working out like they intended. So um, yeah, like I have to say again, I think the story itself, I think the most fascinating thing to me, that I was really into and wanting to see what happened with that. Um, but yeah, had a good time.
Happy to hear it. I
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. Nice to have this one in our roster.
indeed. Well, with that, I say we take a quick break for some housekeeping. And when we come back, we will get into some spoilers here and start getting a little bit deeper into the film. So
Mhm.
we will be right back. Thank you so much for checking out this podcast. We hope you're enjoying it. If you didn't know, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. But none of this is possible without your support. Head over to patreon.com/thewhatnauts and you can get access to over 40 hours of exclusive content, including our Patreon first podcast, The Pilots Club, when you sign up at our $3 tier. Of course, there is a free version of the Pilots Club available, but episodes are exclusive to our Patreon for 2 years before they hit the free feeds. If you're interested in buying merch, we have shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more for sale over at thewhatnauts.com/store. Another great way to help us out is by subscribing and leaving a nice rating and review on your podcasting app of choice. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for video versions of the show, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, you can always find out more information about the shows we make on our website, thewhatnauts.com. And we are back. A big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We love you a lot. We thank you a ton.
Thank you.
It means a lot to us for sure. Let me see. Let me open up all of my documents here so I can see what we've been up to over on the Pilots Club. Phineas and Ferb is what we talked about this past month, but right after we are recording this podcast here, we will be recording our Pilots Club for this next month, in which we are talking about Homecoming. This is an Amazon Prime show based off an audio fiction podcast. So it will be an interesting one for us to chat about. I think some interesting stylistic choices in that show, to say the least. And then over on the free version of the Pilots Club, the last one we released was the 2011 pilot for Wonder Woman. And then coming up, Small Wonder, a show that is often considered one of the worst sitcoms to have actually been a show that got a full season. So there you go. Interesting stuff happening with that. As Melissa previously mentioned earlier in the podcast, right here on the review show, we got to talk about Titan last episode, which certainly was a bizarre one. That movie goes to some strange places, to say the least.
It starts in an extremely strange place, which is plenty. The initial one-sentence premise of this movie is sure plenty to entertain you for the whole runtime. And they're like, no, we have 12 other things up our sleeves.
Yeah.
Buckle in.
Yeah, literally and figuratively, no pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
And then over on the captain's log, let's see, what did we talk? Oh man, I already erased all the stuff that we talked about last time. I bought a new bottle of gin that led me down to a weird rabbit hole on YouTube, including Lightning McQueen and the back rooms, all sorts of stuff like that. Melissa, you caught me up on a bunch of movies that you had seen.
Yes.
Recently.
Yeah, exciting things coming out later in the second half of the year.
Yep.
More Oscar buzzy stuff, less like Comic-Con stuff, but now we have this to talk about on our next episode of the Captain's Log, all the San Diego Comic-Con developments.
Absolutely.
And shortly after that, D23.
Yeah.
D23 is in like 2 weeks.
God, I didn't even realize that. Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. There you go. So yeah, then we got over on the Reactor Core, our spoiler cast for The Bear season 3. On a previous episode of this podcast, the review show, we covered The Bear seasons 1 and 2. That was all in preparation for the new season of The Bear. So yeah, we resurrected the Reactor Core to talk about that one. So
it never truly died. It just like took a nap for a while.
Yeah, it was just sleeping. It was unconscious for a little bit, you know.
No foul play.
that being said, that's enough housekeeping for right now. So let's get into spoilers for the Umbrellas of Cherbourg. I think I said that right. I hope I said that right. All right. So let's talk about the music first of all. I have to say this was maybe the thing that I connected with the least, to be honest. And I think I should also say I'm not a musician. I don't know anything about music really.
Me either.
I can't really speak to some of this stuff in depth. But to me, a lay person, it felt like there was just kind of a disconnect between like the instrumentation and what they were singing about and their emotional states, or because it was not poppy and there were not these like distinct like this is this character's theme, or here's like that character's theme reprised like there are in like typical musicals, right? I found myself not being able to latch on as easily to some of that stuff. Now, I don't think the music was bad. I did like how upbeat a lot of it was. That helped me to kind of stay alert in all of that, right? And not just be like, okay, it's some slow song about, you know, how much they love each other, right? But it was almost jazzy, almost boppy at certain times, which I liked. But I just felt there was a little bit of a disconnect between what they were talking about or what was happening.
I wonder if that's intentional. This movie really defies a lot of what makes a traditional musical. And I will say, I see a lot of musicals. I've never seen an opera. It's like one of the big theater going experiences I need to cross off my list is to find a good old school opera and see it for myself with my real eyes and not watch it in a spy movie where James Bond or Ethan Hunt is sneaking around backstage of the opera.
At your local
I'll take
theater,
a Fathom event. I'll start at Fathom event, work my way up to actually putting on a fine gown and seeing an opera in an opera house. The way a music, right? I'll have the glasses and everything, a feather boa.
Yeah.
A tiny purse. When people sing in a musical, it's supposed to be because they are experiencing an emotion that can no longer be contained through dialogue.
Sure.
They cannot speak. They must sing. So to have this musical where there is no dialogue, like the first thing you see is this beboppy, jazzy, really upbeat big band score as a customer drives into the auto mechanic shop and is like, how is my car? And they're like, your car needs this repair. Like, people are singing the most mundane things in the world. That don't really have emotion behind them. It defies the rule of what a musical should be. And so when the music is frequently bigger and more lavish and more dramatic than any of not the quality of the singing, but also like the words themselves are.
Right.
What is being sung is very casual, very conversational. There's we're dealing with young love here. We're dealing with some tragedy. There are some big emotions at play, but there's also just a lot of where is my necklace? I put it over there. Really? I don't see it. Yes,
Mom,
look again.
Did you take your medicine?
Right. It's stuff like that. It's just very mundane is the word for it. And I'm kind of excited by how mundane this movie lets itself be.
Yeah. I think you brought up a good point, though, is that this is dealing with young love. And I think you can really see it in Genvieve's character, that she is dramatic, right? In the like, he is the love of my life. If I don't see him for all day, every day, I'll die.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And I feel like that is maybe the good thing about the music being much more dramatic, louder, much more lavish than the singing is. Like, it is these underlying emotions, these underlying things that is really what this is about here. It's not about if the mom is taking the medicine or not, right? It's about their emotional states. And I won't go as far as say the music is mimicking their emotional states, right? It's not like when someone is angry, it's this big, deep, dark stuff, but it is just in the way that you said. It's typically more lavish. There's more to it. So I don't know, but I thought that was a good point.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice. I think that really defines the movie. If this was a more traditional musical, I believe it would still be remembered for the look of it, the costumes, the production design, the sets. And as we talk now, I cannot recall any song from this movie, any bit of singing. Now, this is partially because speaking only English, I don't recall dialogue or songs in another language as easily. Like, they just don't stick in my head super well. Sure. And I'm not a musically in-tuned person to begin with. Like, I'm not someone who picks up on like scores as much. So I'm not the person qualified to have a song really stick with me in this way anyway to begin with. But the point stands. The music in this is not super memorable. And it does seem like it is kind of designed that way. I don't believe it is. It's a feature, not a bug. How kind of and not empty and forgettable, but like the music does sometimes feel a bit perfunctory because the conversations that are being had are perfunctory. We have to go through the bills. We have to sell things. We have to arrange dinner.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, though. It looks like the song, the English title for it is I Will Wait for You, which is the main theme. And another song called Watch What Happens, which is Cassard's story. Both were given English lyrics by Norman Gimbel. I'm not familiar with any of all of that stuff, but it looks like even Watch What Happens was covered by like Tony Bennett and Ed Ames and stuff like that. So
do you know who Ed Ames is, or are you just reading a name?
I've heard Ed Ames. Okay. I've heard his name before. I'm not sure, like, oh yeah, he's the guy that did the one hit single in that 1 year and it charted at this level on the Billboard
I grew up
Top
with
40.
Ed Ames. Household name Ames.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know what like weird old crooner somebody's parents were obsessed with.
Sure. Yeah. Tony Bennett
grew up in
was a more household
we know Tony Bennett
name. Yeah. Yeah.
We all know him.
But
there is a turn in this story. And a turn in what you think the story is going to do.
Yeah.
So we start with Genvieve. She's in love with Guy. Her mother does not want her to marry Guy. There's a bit of an age difference between them. She's 17 and he's 20, which honestly, for a movie that's set in the late 50s, I'm like, that seems fine for that time. Like, as far as age differences between romantic leads in old movies go, I'm like, I have fewer complaints about this than many other things.
Sure. A lot of them do have an age difference that can be kind of like, what's happening here? Also, she's underage. But yeah, that wouldn't see it like it's okay. Well, the age difference isn't that much. Like,
I think I like it. Right. I bring it up only because I think it's a smart decision in that it's not so wide a gap that the audience is turned off by the romance, but it's just big enough that it puts another point on the mother's side for this is why you two are not a good match,
Right.
and I don't want you to get married. I think if they picked any other two ages for those characters, the story would not have been balanced so well.
And I think like her hope is that, well, yeah, if he does have to go off and do his 2 years of military service, when he comes back, I will be of age, right? And
Sure.
like then we can legitimately get married and stuff. And that is their plan of like, we'll wait till you get back here.
Yes, he is drafted to serve in the Algerian War, and he's going to be away for quite some time. This isn't just you have a required amount of service. There will be like scheduled breaks and leaves and things like that. No, you have to go do a whole war. You don't know when you're coming back, and you very well might die. So before he leaves, they have sex, presumably for the first time. And then right after he's gone, she's like, well, I'm pregnant. Now what? And we have this in another story, in a more an easier version of this story. You could imagine that we would then cut between her and him when he's out on the front lines. It's very dramatic. Maybe as a song with his war buddies about the girls they're trying to get back to. And you see them, he struggles to get back to her. It's maybe they run at each other across a field or something. They do get back together. They have the baby. You could see in a like a poppier version of this movie that all of that would happen. Instead, we do not see Guy again for this whole middle section of the movie. Occasionally he writes a letter, not because it seems that it's not because he has lost love for her, but merely because he's like, I am busy. I do not have the time or the resources frequently to do this. Right. I write when I am able to write. And it's getting in her head. Who knows how long he'll be gone? What if he never comes back? What if he doesn't love me? What am I going to do? She doesn't tell her mom she's pregnant at first. And we see these months of her life pass by. Her mom's still having money troubles. They take a bunch of mom's jewelry to this jewelry store to try and sell off. And there's a guy at the jewelry store that they meet who... The mom loves this guy. I don't know why the mom just doesn't marry Roland.
Right. That's what I was like, she has the hots for him. She is all starry-eyed, like looking at him like he is just the best thing ever. It's like, Mom,
and it's not like a...
Where's your man? He's not been in the picture.
Right.
You need some help?
There's no father in the picture. The mom's relatively young, you know. It could make sense. I think maybe were it not for the fact that Genvieve is pregnant and there's no man around to be a father, perhaps if the mother did not need to push Roland and Genvieve together, she would have married Roland.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows?
It's Genvieve struggling with, do I marry this man who is... Oh, first, like they meet, they have dinner together once. Makes it known, I really like her. I would like to get to know her better. It's sort of I'm not immediately asking her to marry me, but you know, that option might be, I would like to formally court your daughter. And then he used to go away on business for just like a couple months. And it's weighing on them like, maybe he does want to marry me, but he's going to come back and I'm going to be fully pregnant.
Yeah.
What will he think of me then? And this makes Genvieve's decision harder. She's like, if he comes back and he sees me in this state and he still absolutely wants to marry me, that's such a noble thing to do. I would feel even worse about not marrying him. It's her torn between there's a man I love who is unattainable and there's a man I don't love who is nonetheless very kind and practical and makes sense.
Seems absolutely like a catch. Like, what kind of guy would still want to marry me even though he knows I'm having someone else's baby? That's unheard of, right?
He's a career man. He makes good money. He's very kind to the family. Her mom loves her. Like, there's no red flags with Roland. Only that he isn't Guy.
Right. Yeah. Huge red flag in the Guy department there. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's interesting because I think even through him kind of being like, hey, yeah, I would like to get to know her better, she's really not into him. Like her struggle is not really with him. She's not truly considering him,
Mm.
though. She's still like, no, 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 I just need to wait. Like, it'll be
Mhm.
fine, all that stuff. But as time goes on, it's just more pressure that is building up around her. She still has like guy or gay in the back of her mind, like he'll be home soon. I just know it, but I don't know when. Right.
Yes.
And she kind of comes to that realization, not because um this other guy is so good, but just this, i I don't know when. I don't know what's
Mhm.
going to happen in the future. And I kind of maybe need to make a decision now.
Yes, like this is still the 1950s. It's a great look if you're married when you have a baby. This is what everybody wants. This is why there is a rush. That's why there's a ticking time clock on this, and why she thinks I could stick it out and wait for Guy. And even if he does return in one piece from the war, that's still I have to be a mother to like a little baby for like a year and a half before he even comes back. He won't she will be a vastly different person, and there will be an
Yeah.
entirely new person for him to take on the responsibility of. That's asking a lot of her and asking a lot of him too, to come back and fully accept this situation that has grown in his absence.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
what I appreciate about the story is not a lot of movies take this plot turn where the plot is, now what? I'm stuck in this situation. And she writes to Guy and she informs him. It's like, oh, you're pregnant. I'm still in this war. Sorry, I can't do anything about that. Like, there's no secrets. She only fails to tell her mother for like a couple weeks. They only fail to tell Roland about the baby just for the length of time when he's like doing business in Belgium for like 2 months, and then he comes back and she's like, look at this belly. I
Yeah.
can still buy a wedding dress though. Are we gonna do that? Um, it's an interesting turn in that it is just so plain and direct and matter of fact about it. There's no larger machinations. There's no let me go to the government and see if they can extract Guy from the war.
Right.
Let me plead my case. Let me go
And
to
even,
him. He doesn't escape. There's no larger
yeah.
dramatic thing happening.
And even similarly to what you said earlier, you could also see a version of this where this is kind of the climactic decision that she has to make. No, I think I will marry this other guy. And that is like the tragedy of the
Uh-huh.
story, but also silver lining for her, kind of that, right? Like you can
Mhm.
see like that by itself could also just be the story, but
Mhm.
they continue it. They like, again, like you said, it's only like an hour and a half long. It's not overstaying its welcome with any of that stuff. Um, but it moves along when Guy finally does come back. Also, like his story, his mom, or the woman that raised him is sick and
Yes.
dying. He's kind of expecting her to not be around when he returns. Thankfully,
Mhm.
she is. But like this
Although
nurse,
she she's like cartoonishly this little old woman in bed under a million pillows and blankets, and he comes back and she's like, "Great to see you. Now I will die."
yeah, yeah, it happens
And
soon
she
after
does?
uh he gets back. Yeah, so he's just like his girl is no longer his girl, his mom is gone, and
Mm.
he has nothing, right? Like he has no job. He ended up quitting the job that he had at
Cause he
the
comes back he's probably got some form of PTSD, but also is like mad that not. I don't think he blames Genvieve. I don't think he's angry at her. He's probably more angry at fate, at
Yeah.
circumstances. And he acts up at his mechanic's shop like, no, I won't do that. I'm mad. And the boss is like, well, fine. Be mad on the streets.
It's some car that he had worked on like the day before,
Right.
and the guy comes back in being like, no, none of this stuff got fixed. And they bring him in. He's like, no, I fixed it. It was working when I sent it out. And it's unclear if like, did he forget? Is this some kind of PTSD thing? Or did he actually fix this thing and the guy is just some like, I don't know, rugged, rough monster truck driver and who knows, right?
Right. The owner wants him to apologize, and he's like, "No, I won't apologize."
Yeah, he's just like,
I
screw
remember
this.
I did it right.
I don't need this job. But
then
yeah,
he
you can
goes to
see
this-
like he just has everything going wrong around him. The sense he's just like, I don't need this. Let me
He's
get out of here.
making things go wrong. Like after that exchange, he goes to this bar where we saw him and Genvieve go on a date at the beginning of the movie. And he's just a big brat. And he gets thrown out before he finishes one drink. And then he goes home, and that's when the nurse is like, your aunt finally died, just like she said she would.
And somewhere in there too, right? He sleeps with a sex worker in the midst of all of that.
He goes to a little cabaret club, picks her up. Yes.
But so gets home. The nurse is like, "Hey, man, your mom didn't make it." And the nurse, we should say, is this younger girl. She's like probably around his age. Her name's Madeleine. Seems like she also really cared about Aunt Elise. Saw these two, like saw Aunt Elise at least like family. Is very sad that she's dead. Stuck with Aunt Elise for the 2 years Guy was gone. Seemingly does not know about Genvieve, you know. And maybe knows like, hey, I think he's in a relationship, but like doesn't know details.
Mm-hmm. I think he tells Madeleine about the situation generally.
Yeah.
And they decide to get married. He like falls for her very quickly, and there is a tension of, you can see that she's like, is this a rebound thing? He's had some other love. Also, his aunt just died, and his aunt's like the only person he has in the world. Is he just clinging to me for safety?
Yeah. Well, because she has nowhere to go either. She really has no family, no job. And so he's just like, well, do you want to stay here with me? And again, like part of the times is that just like a young man and a young woman living together.
That's true.
Right? Like you probably don't want to have that situation happening for too long before you are like, oh yeah, we're married.
Right. You know, he is continuing to live in this apartment that he shared with his aunt, and she was living there as the live-in nurse while he was gone. And they're like, Can we both still live here?
It's like, yeah, like I need help with the rent. Like, this would make it easier for all of us if we could just do this. And so, yeah, like she has every right to be like, is this a rebound? Are you just settling for me? Do you really love me? Do you still think about her? And he seems to genuinely care about her. I will say, when the nurse first appeared on screen at the start of the movie, when you see her and all of that stuff, was like, oh, another young attractive woman, huh? I wonder what's happening here. Hello, nurse. Right.
Literally.
Yeah, like is like that was happening in my mind of like, oh, is his relationship with Genvieve going to be put at risk because there's this nurse that's also living at his house that's young and attractive as well. And that was not necessarily the case. There was no tension because of that. That
those
situation.
characters never meet,
never interacted. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like even this relationship with the nurse with Madeline works out. Like it's like, oh, you know what?
Yes.
It feels like this. Sometimes the relationship that you end up in is the one that is in front of
Mm,
you the entire time, right? Like
mm,
even if it wasn't like fiery and passionate and spicy right at the start, right?
mm.
Maybe you grew to love each other over time, and that is just as valid.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, I like that story of we're together because it makes practical sense, and the more time we spend together, it makes emotional sense as well.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so I liked that as just like not a complication, but another like step in this
Mhm.
story that I wasn't necessarily expecting, at least in the way it
Yeah.
happened. That I thought
Yes.
was, you know what, this is nice. I like this. This is a good direction to take this.
Yeah. It's a story about less about fighting against something and more about falling back on your feet and accepting and finding joy in option number 2 instead of like raging against fate to get back to option number 1,
Right. Yeah.
which is not
Sometimes
something you
your
see often.
first option won't work out. Your first relationship won't always work out,
Mm.
even if you think it
Mm.
is like this is the one, right? Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's there's sometimes it just does not work out. Life gets in the way.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, these two relationships just kind of continue on and go their own way, and it seems like Genvieve lives happily ever after with I forget the other guy's name,
Roland.
Roland. um yeah, they seem like they live happily ever after, and then we also see like Guy and Madeline take the money from his mother to buy the land to put their little gas station on, their little
Mm.
convenience store or what have you. um and they seem to be perfectly happy. They now have a kid
Yes.
too. It's some years
Yes.
down the road, and there is a so I let me ask you this. I'll stop right here with the stuff. At this
Okay.
point in the movie, what did you expect the ending of this movie to be?
Hmm. I didn't know. First off, artistically, like, is this going to get bigger? How is the musical aspect of this going to progress? Are we going to get a more conventional musical number? And we did not. It's remains in the same style of the music maybe being conventional, but the singing itself just still being very low key and conversational.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure. We see them, Guy and Madeline and their little boy excited. It's Christmas time. They have this little business together. Uh, I want to say that looking at the Wikipedia article, it's recapping the plot, and it says 4 years later, on a snowy Christmas Eve, Guy and Madeline are in the office of their gas station with their small son, Francois. As Madeline and Francois leave to visit Santa Claus, a car pulls in, and it's got the hyperlink to Santa Claus. Like, do you know this guy? Here's background context on who
You ever
Santa
heard of him?
Claus is. Like, yes,
I
I
don't know if
do
they have
need.
him where you guys are, but yeah, all over here,
I
Santa
do.
Claus, you know.
I do need reference links to, like, maybe I do need to learn more about the city of Cherbourg or the Algerian War or the other movies that this director made before and after the Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Santa Claus I've got on lock. Don't worry. Him I
Right, yeah.
know.
Yeah, exactly. Um yeah, I don't know what I was expecting either. I was
Mhm.
on one hand being like, well, will circumstances continue to drive them farther apart, or will they somehow conspire to put them back together? Like, will they end up in a relationship somehow, some
Mhm.
way? Um, and I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. And then the ending of the movie happens. We'll say what that is in just a sec. But even then, I was like, huh, I don't know if like I feel like there could have been 2 or 3 other ways this could have ended
Yeah.
that still fit or still was as not a shock, because I don't think the end is shocking in the slightest, but
No.
it like just like I could have seen this one thing. Like one thing I thought of is like, oh yeah, he works at a gas station. She will pull up and um yeah, like they'll like he won't know that she's out there. Like he'll have his back turned to the window. He's talking to her or something, and it's just this like real close encounter. But they did like they don't, and it's just like their lives have gone separate ways. And I thought an ending like that could have been nice. But Madeline also mentions like, I have a surprise for you down the road, and she's like, I'm gonna go take him to Santa and get that. Like, I was even wondering, could that pearl necklace come back? Could she like have gone to like, hey, I bought this new outfit, it's Christmas Eve, like I'm gonna come home, look fancy, we'll go out to eat and all that stuff. And I was thinking maybe that like she will have that pearl necklace, not knowing that it was like the mother of the woman that he used to love. I just thought that would have been like the small interesting detail. But that did not happen either. Did you have any kind of like weird theory or thought like that?
No, I don't remember what I was really thinking.
Interesting.
I'll say that what happens is Genvieve and the daughter, Guy's daughter, who he's never met, apparently. And I was
correct.
A little sort of put off by that, especially like the fact that like he's never come to see her, or that like Roland and Genvieve never wrote to him saying, this is your daughter, this is her. He doesn't know her name. I'm like, he didn't die. You guys know that he came back to Cherbourg and he's still there, right? And it doesn't seem like he's mad that you two got married. And Roland seems like such an upstanding guy that if the father came into town, I think he would want to, maybe want to keep the public appearance for the sake of propriety, not out of snobbishness, just wanting to avoid maybe putting any, judgment, having the public put any judgment on Genvieve. He might want to keep up the image that, no, this is my child. We got married, we had this baby, don't do the math about it. But it seems like he seems empathetic enough that he would want the biological father, if he is interested, to at least like meet the child, know her name, have a photo of her, see her occasionally. The fact that it's just like he just came back and like never asked, knew Genvieve was pregnant, and was never like, hey, baby should have been born by now. Did that happen? How's baby?
Yeah,
it's years later. The kid's 5.
Like in the same way we are ascribing like the like Roland is a stand-up guy. Like we also don't have anything to really say that Guy isn't either. Like his circumstances took him away, and when he came back, they were so radically different. I wonder if him staying out of it is his own way of being like, no, I will make sure to like protect her and like not like inspire other people to do the math, as you put it, of like we used to be in a relationship and there's no way that like that, right? Yeah, so that might be his way of just like, you know what, let me stay out of it. But yeah, even in
I will
this,
let them
like,
keep the respectable illusion. Yeah, I think another part of it is that Genvieve and Roland do move, and it is entirely possible. Like it's not like 1958. If she didn't leave a forwarding address and he doesn't want to go ask her mom for it, what's he going to do? How is he going to find her again that effectively? It just sort of perturbs me whenever it makes me a little sad when there's a kid in the movie and the kid's just completely incidental. Like the kid's just like a plot mechanism. And, we don't have space in this movie for the kid to be any sort of character. That's fine. I understand that. But when adults like don't really care that the kid is there or show any interest in their child,
Yeah.
the
That
kid's
like
just sort of a MacGuffin.
that is the one thing, like it's one thing for him to kind of like
Mm.
stay away for the most part, but even in this chance encounter when she is like, hey, she's 10 feet away here, like, do you want to come meet her? And he says no. That is the one thing that I think you can say, like, I don't know, but also, do you want to stir up those emotions?
And maybe you can meet her
Like,
and it can't be like, hey, this is your actual father. It could just be like, this is an old friend of mommy's. He's going to help put gas in our car. Would you like to say hello? Would you like to wish him Merry Christmas?
yeah,
Joyeux
something like that.
Noel.
Yeah, indeed. Would you like to learn how to pump some gas?
Do you want to play like Little Gas Girl? That's what you've always dreamed of. Kids love to play gas station.
Yeah.
The funniest detail in this movie to me, a movie that is not funny. It's not trying to be funny. It's not trying to be a comedy at all.
Mhm.
The Genvieve's mom is sort of theatrical in a way that's almost comedic, but she does not have any actual jokes. When you see at the beginning of the movie, when Guy goes home and you see him talking to Aunt Elise and then he goes in his room, he has like a play set that is a gas station. Like he has some old like model cars, trains, whatever, like standard stuff like a boy would have and like never get rid of, even though he's like 20.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's still like manly enough. It's a car.
I still
He's
have
this,
my
like,
copy of Johnny Tremaine that I read in elementary school, right?
Sure. Yes, those sort of timelessly masculine details. He has this gas station playset, like sitting on the floor that I thought was very funny. And then
It's great.
2 years later, when he comes home, his room looks exactly the same. But like the gas station playset has been moved from the floor to like the top of the dresser. He just picks it up and puts it back where it was.
Yeah. It's like, that's out of place.
My gas station goes on the floor. We all know this. Floor is gas.
The pump can't reach up there, Mom. God.
What am I supposed to do? Drive my car up my dresser? The cars drive on the floor. and this is his dream. Like he grew up wanting to run a gas station, and that's what he did. He's just led a gas station centric existence.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing is like I think even the store he runs, I called it a convenience store at one point. It's not a convenience store.
I don't think so.
It's a gas station / mechanic shop, and like that's what he wants to do. He's a mechanic. Is ultimately what his dream has always been. He's not like, man, I sure want to pump someone's gasoline. But like that is kind of part of the business side, right? So it just kind of comes with the play set, I feel like. But still. Oh man. Yeah, I was not expecting the story to take those twists and turns. I like how almost immediately after Genvieve leaves at the end.
One more thing. So she
drives.
She drives in. They like moved out to the country. Her mom has since died, and like they were driving. Like her and her daughter are on some little trip. Like we had to go into the city. We had to do some business. Now we're going back home. Whatever. They're truly just passing through, and they just stop at this gas station. And she's just coiffed hair. She's covered in furs. She's clearly living some sort of high life. Genevieve's been like it's an interesting performance in that her emotions seem, what she is saying is big. She is verbalizing big emotions, but her face is never that expressive. Which might be which I'm not putting on the actress. This might be another purposeful stylistic choice, or just a popular fashion of acting at the time, that you wanted this almost stone-faced, beautiful, placid European beauty. I don't have the context to really figure it out. All I'm saying is that at the end, uh, she doesn't seem very happy, but she doesn't seem very sad either. Seems like she's adjusted to things. She is content. She goes inside to talk with Guy in the gas station. And she's like, oh, it's cold. But even though she's wearing this full fur coat, he's like, you look cold. Come inside. The daughter just stays in the car outside. Yep. Daughter wearing much less clothes. She's not wearing furs.
My partner mentioned the exact same thing. Of like, you're just going to leave your kid in there? What are you doing?
This made me the most upset. Yeah. Like, send the kid inside and you two talk outside. Kids having fun, like, breathing on the window, drawing things. She looks happy.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would not like it if my mom went inside someplace and I was stuck in a cold car while like a stranger puts gas in it.
Yeah. The whole thing is just an interesting scenario. And I'm even wondering if part of her kind of more stoic performance at this time is to kind of put up a wall, to not really show any it can be very awkward to run into an ex and be like, so how are you, right? And like, do you really want to say how you are, to give them any kind of clue about, like, do I want to let them in my life in that way?
Right. What's the correct answer? If I'm happy, I'll make you feel bad. If I'm sad, I'll make you feel bad.
Yeah, or it might, I might make myself feel bad, right? Like I might, yeah. So
I'll let the fur coat speak for itself.
Yeah, I in my mind, that's kind of what I read it as, this awkward, like, so you own this gas station now, like you always wanted. Yep. What are you up to? Living life. Yep.
Mom's dead, but life goes on.
Yeah.
Got husband, got big house, got to drive back to big house. And he's like, yeah, what are you going to do? Yeah. What's your daughter's name? The thing I told you I would like to name my daughter. So like the daughter's name is Francoise. And what Guy ends up naming his son is like the male version of that doesn't have an E on the end.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so just like an interesting coincidence in that, but
or it seems like he borrowed the name. Like she talked once when they were dating. I'd love to have all these kids.
They both really liked it. Yeah,
and he's like, "Oh, I have a son. I'll name my son the male version of this name Genvieve used once."
Yeah. Something that I really liked about the end of that encounter, though, is as Genvieve leaves and Madeline and the kid come back almost immediately, is it goes from this like awkward chance encounter to him like immediately just dropping all of that and like having a snowball fight with this kid. He's playing around, like just instantly complete change of mode here. And I think that was a good touch to be like, well, is he thinking about her? Like, does he like it's not the like, is the top still spinning at the end of Inception, right? It's no, he loves the family he's with. He loves the life he's with. And I think that was a good note to end it on.
Yeah. I do. There's still a bittersweet, almost melancholy sense to it, but it is for the best that they are both with people who they love, or who at least take care of them.
I liked the story a lot, to say the least. I know we've talked about a little bit of the music. Did you want to say any kind of few things about like the colors of this and just like the way it looked?
It looks beautiful. Genvieve, first she starts the movie when she's dating Guy with this like little ponytail on top of her head. And then after he leaves, she's like, my innocence is gone. I can no longer have the little ponytail. And then she becomes a middle part icon.
Yeah.
Or she completely changes her look. It's funny that she's in a much gloomier disposition, but continues to wear the most brightly colored clothes you've ever seen. Presumably because we all understand the visual language, but just because a person is sad doesn't mean that logically speaking, they would then go out and buy gray clothes. She's still wearing her same old brightly colored dresses.
Yeah.
The wallpaper, particularly the bright fuchsia and orange wallpaper in her and her mom's apartment, is unforgettable.
Oh yeah.
There's really intense wallpaper in Guy's room too. It's not like the subdued masculine, it's just blue stripes wallpaper you'd see in a boy's room. It's also like, it's purple. It's paisley.
Yeah, just like extreme lavishly patterned, just bright colors that just sear themselves into your eyes. What I thought was interesting too is that there was often like each room had a theme, where like I forget who it must have been. It must have been Guy's room. His room is just blue, just like pure blue, and he takes off his coat and he has a blue shirt, and he opens his closet and he has more blue stuff in there, and immediately I start singing the "I'm blue dabba dee dabba," right? And it's like I was at certain times expecting more contrast between that, to like his room is blue, but he tends to wear a lot of like yellow or red or something like that. No, that didn't really happen. I think even her too. It's a lot of like pinks and purples, and she's often
there's
in
no
pink
specific theme colors. You know, it's not like Genvieve wears pink. How could I ever date Madeline? She wears green. She's a green girl.
She's a greenie. Yeah, no, it's just so bright. It's vivid. I even like the little area that you see a couple times outside of Guy's apartment, where there's like the big blue gates. There's some painting on the wall that's one color. The like alleyway is also like painted another color. Like it's fun to look at, because of the bright colors. At times it's a lot, just from the sheer vibrance or the sheer decadence of everything that's happening there. I also thought it was really funny when they're like, oh, we're poor, we're running out of money, and then they like look at our living room and it's everything fancy and lavish, and it's just like, you're not. Like, you can sell anything and you'll be okay here.
Maybe sell an additional thing in your store besides umbrellas. I wanted so much more about why nobody talks about it. Like, why do you sell umbrellas? Why do you only sell umbrellas? And I think there was a credit for the umbrellas provided by this company, and like the company's logo is on like these little placards by the umbrellas. They do look good. I was watching it, picking it out. I want that one. But I wanted, they're the title character.
Yeah. I was absolutely expecting more umbrellas, having the umbrellas be symbolic in a way. And maybe they are. I'm sure there's some cinema nerds out there who have dissected this enough to be like, yes, they are symbolic of the relationship between this and that, right?
The movie does start with this overhead shot of the town of Cherbourg, and it starts to rain, and people pull out all these brightly colored umbrellas, and the bright colors can psychologically perhaps combat the rain, but they never win. It's never like I pulled out a yellow umbrella and the rain went away for fear of the bright sunny yellow. It's a constant conflict, a thing you just have to live with.
Yeah.
It's just going to rain. It's never not going to rain. You can't fight your way out of it. You can't sing your way out of it. You can't do an impassioned speech out of it. You just have an umbrella. And if you got to have an umbrella, why not have a very brightly colored, cute, patterned one?
Right. Yeah.
And with the narrative being, you can't always get what you want. You have to find something else to be satisfied with. You have to find color in your life. and color is abundant around you
Sure.
if you know
Yeah.
where to look.
Yeah, and like I think that is the more obvious message or theme of the movie. But also, yeah, like why umbrellas? Do they make them themselves? Does the mom make them from the like? Is this like a family trade they've passed that? There's just they just have a store. That's it.
Just umbrellas.
Yep.
I'd love a whole story about the umbrella trade. I don't even know. I've never heard of a person like making their own umbrella. I've never seen a store. I've never seen a booth at a farmer's market for artisanal handmade umbrellas.
Yeah, right. That would be a thing. I would absolutely check out that both. I the umbrella that I have is one that my work gave me as just like, when you go to like a work retreat, sometimes you get like it's a mug and it's filled with like pens and candy and you get all this stuff. One year we got an umbrella, and it is the nicest umbrella I've ever seen in my life. And it is great. It like opens in reverse. So instead of
Those
like
are good.
opening like that, it opens up like that and bends backwards. It's so cool. And it looks like it's all black, but when you open it up, there's like rainbow color stuff on the inside. So it's neat. But that's my fancy umbrella, and that's my only like personal anecdote about umbrellas.
What's the number one umbrella movie? My Neighbor Totoro?
I feel like that's just that scene. You know what I mean?
But that's the one scene everyone remembers. That's the iconography.
But if you mean like the film, I would even put Mary Poppins above that.
Oh, that's true.
Right? You have to go with that.
1960s brightly colored musicals had to have an umbrella somewhere.
Yeah, indeed.
My Fair Lady, she at least has a parasol.
Do you want to move on to bingo? Do you have any other kind of final things you want to say about this?
I did enjoy this movie. I liked how it's not outright weird, but it's really unconventional. Yep. And one thing you and I have learned together in our time on the review show is that it's kind of exciting when a movie is more boring than you'd think it would be. When like there's clearly choices it could make that would be spicier or more dramatic, and the film's like, no, instead I'm gonna go over here.
Yeah.
Like nope, they took the less thrilling option. Lane. Right. And sometimes that's far more shocking and surprising. You're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Yeah. That she just quietly agreed to marry another man, and that man's also very nice. Whoa. There's a certain charm to that I've really come to appreciate.
Good stuff. Cool. Let's see if I can bring up the bingo cards. How do I get over here to surfing? There we go.
I think I've got one. Since they go to that bar a second time in the movie, I can cross off local watering hole.
Oh, nice.
2 is enough times. Yeah. 2 is enough times.
I will absolutely give you that one.
That gives me another bingo. I am at 2 bingos.
Damn. Okay. Let's see. I don't think I have. I mean, well, no. This is not the spirit of that one. But guy overprotective of their car.
I think, and I like into the shop. And that guy was like, "Hey, I don't want any trouble. I just want to tell you the thing wasn't fixed. Can I just have it fixed?"
Yeah.
Please.
He's not overly protective of his car. But yeah, no, I think I don't have anything that I can get here. So a little bit of a nothing burger for me.
Womp womp.
Womp womp indeed. Cool. Well, that is our quick little bingo update for us here. Melissa got that extra bingo. So yeah, let me bring this back over to this. Whoa, good lord.
Ah!
Did not mean for that to happen. Welcome back to our show.
Episode 298 of the Whatnauts.
No, it's 299 now. We already did that one. We
no, we skipped
it. Yeah. So, Melissa, recommendations. What else would you recommend to people who enjoyed this one?
We've certainly mentioned Barbie. And alongside that, I would recommend La La Land, another brightly colored Ryan Gosling musical that does have a similar ending where the two, spoiler alert, have you ever seen La La Land?
I have not.
Do you ever think you will?
Probably not.
They don't end up together. It is
okay.
an ending where you see how much these two characters inspired each other, how valuable their romance was, but they just weren't meant for each other. And they go on to other people and like they see each other and they nod and they're like, I'm happy. Don't worry about me. You're cool. You did good. Yeah.
Yeah, even if you hadn't said that one, I totally would have been like, I'm sure if you liked this, go watch La La Land.
Theoretical recommendation for La La Land.
Yeah.
Another great umbrella-based musical, Singin' in the Rain, in addition to Mary Poppins.
Sure. There you go.
There's a brightly colored story of young romance torn asunder is Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
And others, but like, this is the one I like because it's the frantic one where John Leguizamo wears devil horns and no other Romeo and Juliet adaptation has that.
Yep.
I just had something. This theme of returning to love long gone has shown up in many things we've covered on the history of the review show. I think we found it in a number of like anime in particular. Like where more often there's like some misunderstanding or some disagreement and characters are separated and it's like years later that they will return to each other. This one isn't an anime, this thing I would like to recommend. The sort of quiet, melancholy, sometimes things just go that way and things fall apart nature of the Umbrellas of Cherbourg reminded me of something we talked about a long time ago on the review show, which is the Sad Jeff Lemire book. What's the name of the sad...
Essex County.
Essex County. Thank you.
So, I'm like, to be honest, saying the sad Jeff Lemire book doesn't really narrow it down.
I don't know. Frankenstein Agent of Shade wasn't particularly sad. I thought of this because the particular brand of gas station in this movie is an Esso, which, and the first time I ever saw an Esso, which it must not be an American company, or if it was, it has changed branding since my conscious life of memory. The first time I ever saw one was in this Canadian graphic novel. So watching this and seeing that sign again sparked that memory for me. Essex County, a really beautiful collection of short stories all set around this one county in rural Canada. Just about, I thought my life was going to go one way and then it didn't. I thought I was going to be with this person and I wasn't. I'm not the hockey star I thought I'd be. I didn't marry my high school sweetheart like I thought I would. But I'm getting through it and I'm alive and that's what's important. Go Indeed. Canada.
Indeed. To go back to the anime that you mentioned, we also covered Kids on the Slope very early on in this podcast. That would be kind of one of those, like, it's a slower slice of life story. It's about these kids growing up. Life doesn't necessarily go the way they dreamed it would or they thought it would, stuff like that. And there is this like return then to those relationships down the road and this reunion in that sense. So I would recommend that one. That was a
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorites. um Let's see. Yeah. Other things I would recommend. There's a Japanese director, Yasuhiro Ozu, who has a number of films which you can also find on Max that are just these kind of slice of life
Oh,
stories. Um,
yes.
they're just kind of about life growing up. Do I marry the local bachelor, or do I dream bigger and have my parents disappointed in me,
Mm-hmm.
or something like that? But they are small, of just like, let me follow this character through like a week of their life as their grandparents visit or something like that. But he has a couple, especially late spring, early summer stuff like that I would recommend.
Are
um
are these also in that TCM section on Max?
yes, yeah,
A
yeah,
gold mine.
phenomenal, yeah.
We need to make
um
ourselves, we need to have like a TCM month or a required amount of TCM episodes a year. I think it's
um
good for us.
Something that's really interesting about Ozu's style is that he had a lot of his actors look directly in the camera as they were talking to another
Wow.
person. So it looked like they
Love
were
it.
talking to you. And there's a few moments in Umbrellas of Cherbourg where they do that. They look right in the camera and it looks like they're singing to you. Um, but
I
he did it for long periods of time where they just looked at you and spoke and talked. So
I do have another recommendation. I needed to
go
go
for
like
it.
look up a video about it.
Yeah.
There's a musical, more like a rock opera from the
Hmm.
80s called Streets of Fire that takes place in not like a full dystopia, but like a grungy city overrun by different punks and gangs. And it's sort of a throwback 1950s leader of the pack, like musical
Hmm.
about like a girl caught up and like a romance caught up in these gang wars. But it's sort of theatrical and exaggerated, and like the streets are wet, the lights are neon, everything's steamy. I think the
Cool.
guys hit each other with sledgehammers. And
Yeah.
one of my favorite YouTubers, Patrick H. Willems, did a video about this movie a couple months ago called The Best Movie Ever for 20 minutes. And it talks about how the movie does not work. It is cool ingredients, but never completely comes together. But there is one, like, the big finale musical number is a masterpiece. He's like,
Mm,
it cannot redeem the movie as a whole, but the movie as a whole also cannot drag the scene down. I must dissect
interesting.
it.
That's cool. I might have to check that one out.
I
At least
recommend it
just
a
those
lot.
those 20 minutes if nothing
I,
else, right?
the video's a great introduction and cover of it. I recommend Patrick H. Willems videos a lot. And this is not the beginning nor the end of me pointing you at them.
Cool. Good stuff. Good stuff indeed. The one other recommendation I would make is actually still so far my favorite movie of 2024. This is Perfect Days, um, which is, yeah, just a film about this guy who cleans public toilets in
An-
Japan. Um,
Another entry in the so boring it's thrilling genre.
oh, yeah,
This
so
ano-
good.
another pinnacle of French cinema, Jean Dielman, 53K the Commerce, the movie that's like a whole woman's address, that's 3 hours
Yeah,
long. You just
yeah,
watch her like do stuff around her apartment. I have not seen it. We considered it for French Cinema Month. We
we
put a
did.
pin in it for later. I am aware of it and what it contains and how it is surprisingly enthralling just to watch her like cook and clean.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean there's a little bit of dialogue in Perfect Days, but for the most part there is not much. The main character especially does not speak.
Mm.
Except for like one or two lines. But yeah, you just see him do his routine day in and day out and day in and day out. And you start to kind of learn to read between the lines of what his life is, what his relationships are, and who this person is. And it's fascinating. And it is, life did not go the way that he expected his life to go. Is what I will say about that. I believe it's available on Hulu at the moment, at least here
Nice.
in the United States. So go check it out. I cannot recommend it enough. It is fantastic. So, Perfect Dates. Go check it out. Cool. Now that we've done bingo and recommendations, we will let you know what we are up to for this next episode. Melissa,
Yes.
we are watching the 17 episode spy-fi psychological drama called The Prisoner, which is available on Amazon Prime. Melissa, where did you first hear about this?
This is an old show. This was a British show from 1967. My dad really liked this growing up.
Okay. Cool.
It must have aired on like some local PBS station or something. So I've known the basic concept of The Prisoner. I've known some of the iconography of it. I've always wanted to watch it. I brought it up to you before. Like, I really want us to watch The Prisoner, especially in this new format of the review show where we record every other week and we plan things out in advance. Like 17 hours, we could not have fit this into 1 week. In our previous schedule for the show. I'm like, now is the time.
Yeah.
Let us watch The Prisoner.
Absolutely.
I said this to you months ago. And then like recently you were like, hey, there's a couple shows I'm thinking of doing for the Pilots Club. Here they are. Let me know what you think. I don't know if you've heard of the show, The Prisoner.
Yeah. So from my perspective, you had mentioned this to me. Yes. Someone else had mentioned this to me. Shout out to Austin Walker. I've loved his work in video game journalism. I listen to a number of podcasts he's on, including Friends at the Table, an actual play podcast. He's on a Star Wars podcast as well. He had mentioned this show. And it must have been around the same time that you had mentioned it to me. Because I don't remember exactly who mentioned it first. Of like, did I hear him on the podcast mention it first? Did you mention this to me first? Regardless, it didn't stick in my mind just yet. Like the seed had been planted, but it hadn't sprouted yet. Of like, I should pay attention to that. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until Austin then mentioned it on like multiple podcasts in the span of a month that I was like, oh, he mentioned it. Oh, he mentioned it again. Yeah. Okay. And but by that time, I was like, I should maybe check this out. I had completely forgotten that you had mentioned it to me that one time. And so when I was like, what about this? You were like, I mentioned this to you a long time ago, Kyle. I was just like, oh, yeah, that's right.
You merely adopted The Prisoner. Yeah. I was born in The Prisoner. I want to mention, because this is like an old, sometimes you have trouble finding an old show on streaming. Not The Prisoner. You can watch it on Zumo Play, Tubi, Sling TV, the Roku channel, Amazon Prime, Crackle, Plex, Fubo, Philo, and you can acquire it on Redbox for a penny.
While Redbox is still around.
It's a fire sale. We're selling off every digital rental, intangible rental of The Prisoner.
Yeah. You could potentially own this on DVD if you buy it from Redbox.
There was sometime more recently a TV miniseries remake of The Prisoner with, I think, Jim Caviezel and Ian McKellen. We're not watching that one. We're watching the 1967 one starring Patrick McGoohan.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is 17 episodes long, and the basic concept is a spy resigns from his post. You never learn his name or why he resigned. But after he turns in his resignation, he wakes up in a mysterious, idyllic little community known as the Village. And he has no name. He's a number. He is number 6. And you never hear him called anything besides number 6. And everyone there is clearly he has been imprisoned as punishment for withdrawing from his spy post. But nobody knows why he withdrew.
Yeah.
And the secret organizers behind this village, which seems like it does pre-exist, that this is a place that a lot of spies get sent. So this isn't all a charade just for him. But they are trying everything they can think of to keep him there and to get him to confess what he knows.
Right. Something happened as to why he resigned. And he is Johnny Tightlips, right? He's not saying a thing.
Yes. I ain't squealing.
Yeah. And then to add to that, what I understand is it is a very strange show. It's very bizarre. I've now seen the first 3 episodes. I'm sold.
Me too.
It's great.
Yes.
But from what I understand, the finale of this show took some major swings, especially for a show in the 60s. It might not blow your mind in terms of like if this was a modern day show, but for the time period this was, it seems like they took some major swings. I don't know what they are or what that means or where this goes. I just know that things are strange and bizarre. Everything always feels off, like something is wrong. I've heard it described as like Kafka-esque and the paintings of Salvador Dali kind of come to light. Not that things are like legitimately melting, but in the sense that it's surreal. Like something strange is happening here. So, and
it's been cited as a big influence or reference point for Lost, which you and I love. But as after watching these first 3 episodes, we'll talk about it more in 2 weeks. But I'm getting a lot of vibes of The Good Place, also.
Yeah,
which I was not expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is an interesting one. That is what we will be up to next episode. I'm excited to talk about that one. It's going to be a lot of fun. So go check it out. Go check it out. Indeed.
Please do. You've no shortage of ways to watch The Prisoner.
Indeed. Well, with that, we will wrap things up right here. Melissa, where can the people get in contact with you on the internet?
You can send me an email the old-fashioned way. Just drop me a note at yourhostmelissa@gmail.com.
There you go. And if you guys want to stay up to date with me, I am at Yo Kyle Springer. And if you would like to stay up to date with all of the things that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts Official on Threads. So please go like, share, and subscribe. If you're checking this out on YouTube, we got plenty more videos for you to check out right over there. That would help us out a ton. You guys know the deal with all of that. Yeah, this has been number 298 of the Whatnauts review show. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bonsoir.